Our Heather Jackson was there as well and caught it all on video.
After being flushed underneath the bridge by floodwater, she landed in some trees where she held on for dear life, but still unsure if she'd ever make it home again. Rebecca says that she was on top of her car fighting for her life for about an hour and a half. And if it wasn't for her cries for help, who knows how long she would have stayed there. After snapping your kid in and then leaving your purse or diaper bag behind with them used to be the old way of doing things. But now there's new technology. And some lower parts of the area, trails like the one that I'm standing in, turned into 8-foot ravines. Plum Creek and Kyle stood no chance at all because of those heavy rainfalls falling so quickly. Take a look at this flood gauge. It's at 5 feet. Well, officials tell me that rain in this area went well over 10 feet.
KXAN's Heather Jackson joining us live from there. What's going on, Heather?
Take a look, you guys, right behind me. This has been going on for well over an hour and a half. As you can see, there's that dump truck right underneath that overpass. Dave, I'm actually in the parking lot of that apartment complex where that stabbing occurred. And where I'm actually standing is where one resident tells me she saw 4 people bleeding excessively just right outside her upstairs window.
This is what we know right now. There's no one injured, and most of that fire is contained. Take a look at the scene left behind me.
I'm not Sarah. Organizers just brought me this warm cup of hot chocolate. I'm here with the Johnson family where they have their 7-year-old, their 6-year-old. You guys let the people know out there, how are you keeping warm? Bart, it's really noisy out here because the 30 animatronics behind me are like real life dinosaurs. Take a look at this Tyrannosaurus Rex here.
Horror. As Sherry Parode rides along Old Antioch Road towards her home, she sees ashes blanketing the ground.
There was no reason for this.
Even before we actually reached her house, Sherry already knows.
Oh my God.
It's no longer there.
It's all gone.
Sherry is a UT grad and retired nurse who lived just outside of Smithville for 38 years. But the Hidden Pines fire burned her longtime home to the ground.
My house. Why, God? Why me? What did I do?
Walking amongst the rubble and seeing that her home is gone is just the beginning of it, she says. The hardest part for her is mourning the loss of memories. Last week, with the wildfire quickly approaching, Sherry had little time to evacuate. Photos and other sentimental items were left behind.
My college graduation pictures, my mother and father's pictures, my brother's ashes.
Sherry has no idea what's next for her. She doesn't have a place to live, and even if she did, she says it could never replace what she called home.
I wanted my home.
In Smithville, Heather Jackson, KXAN News.
I listen somebody to say, hey, somebody here, help to me.
Rebecca Ochoa was driving down Goforth near the Steeplechase subdivision in Kyle when the snares of the flood pulled her in.
I was coming from work and I got swept in the water.
Rebecca says it happened so fast, all she could think about was trying to survive.
I quickly rolled down the window and just pulled myself up.
The overflow of the Plum Creek continued to flush Rebecca down Goforth until her car crashed into a tree. She started yelling, hoping someone would hear her and come help.
My phone got swept away, so I couldn't call anybody. And then I was just screaming out for a good while.
Rebecca says that she was on top of her car fighting for her life for about an hour and a half. And if it wasn't for her cries for help, who knows how long she would have stayed there. 3 men answered her call. 2 came from an apartment complex a block down, and 1 man who stopped just to see the flooding.
We were able to jungle gym it down there, grabbing on the limbs the whole way till we got to her car and then grab her and pull her out.
Matthew says it was definitely a life or death moment with powerful water rushing by.
You could definitely feel the water and the mud kind of sweeping out past your feet, and it was strong.
But they fought the current and managed to pull Rebecca to safety.
Thank you so much for hearing me. I really appreciate it, and thank you.
For the 3 men that risked their lives to save her, Rebecca says she will be forever grateful. And Kyle, Heather Jackson, KXAN News.
I thought I was gonna die.
The day before Halloween, Anaí Cuevas' car got stuck in water on the Old Bridge Trail in Kyle as she drove to work. Anaí immediately dialed 911.
The water was getting really high and I was scared I was gonna get in my car and I didn't want to drown in my car.
Anaí instead chose to get out and walk towards a nearby HEB. But once she was out of the car, floodwater clawed at her legs and swung her into its grips.
I ended up going completely under the bridge and completely underwater. I was drowning for a few minutes.
After being flushed underneath the bridge by floodwater, she landed in some trees where she held on for dear life, but still unsure if she'd ever make it home again. She hung onto a tree like a koala for almost 2 hours. Ani says when she wanted to give up, out of nowhere, a man showed up.
That's the guy that I refer to as my angel, because I mean, he's the first person that saw me. If I would have never saw him, I mean, I would have probably died.
The man managed to pull Ani to safety, but he left before she had the chance to say thank you. She's now on the quest to find him.
I just want to thank him personally.
In Kyle, Heather Jackson, KXAN News.
I think that's going to look really good.
Carpentry has been a hobby for John Holloway since high school. He recently lost a job as a landman in the oil and gas industry. He had no idea that his hobby would turn into a full-time job until he saw all the fallen cypress trees in Wimberley.
I just thought that a piece of that cypress would make a nice mantle piece for my sister.
His sister told him to sell it on Facebook instead. Once people in Wimberley saw what he was doing, his rescue project took root.
They buy my pieces and then they donate them to the flood victims that have lost their furniture and so forth.
But John's project is actually a team effort. He has to get the okay from homeowners along the river to actually move these trees and use them. For neighbors like Carol Algren, the destroyed trees serve as a lingering reminder of their loss.
They're like our family members. You know, they've been here probably 300 to 400 years.
So when John asked to use the trees, the answer was easy.
There's so much positive going on in Wimberley in the recovery, and so this is another part of it.
John believes his new project is more than recovery. It's a sign of Wimberley's rebirth.
I call it life after death.
Heather Jackson, KXAN News.
Most of us, me included, are recovering racists.
For 50 years, Milton Jordan says he has been fighting to be free of racism.
You have no option when you grow up in East Texas, when I did, to be anything other than a racist.
He says it's like being an alcoholic, and in order to recover, he educates others and protests events he thinks are insensitive, like the Georgetown Civil War Ball. Some ball attendees didn't pay protesters any mind. They say it's just a ball.
Well, these dances were done even 100 years before 1860 in both the North and the South. So it was a cultural dance of the 19th century, no racism at all.
Thomas Baumfalk and his date are excited to travel back in time and experience historical heritage.
We didn't mean to hurt anybody's feelings. We're just coming to dance.
While they dance, protesters will march, signaling there are still differences of opinion.
That events that celebrate that privileged lifestyle should not be organized, planned, or carried out.
In Georgetown, Heather Jackson, KXAN News.
Come on, guys, come on.
Every morning, Ernesto Trujecki makes the rounds to pick up students and take them to school. But when everyone is dropped off, he returns to his real job, a mechanic for the San Marcos Consolidated Independent School District.
You have to come back and get all those buses ready to go to the second route. Yeah, it's kind of hard sometimes.
The school district doesn't have enough drivers to cover all the routes, so Ernesto and other employees in the transportation department help out. The district says it's been tough to recruit folks to get behind the wheel because those that want to drive aren't guaranteed the hours they want.
Now, we have some drivers that make over 30 hours a week, but we do not guarantee it.
So until they can get back up to full staff, Ernesto and all the others will have to keep on wearing multiple hats.
A lot of times it's overtime and maybe coming in on a Saturday, to work.
You got two? Wow.
But Ernesto is happy to do his part to keep the wheels on the bus going round and round. In San Marcos, Heather Jackson, KXAN News.